Welcome, everyone. Bienvenidos to BAMS Fest ARTDACITY series. This installment, we dive into the Queendom of Elma Lewis, shaping our generation through service, grace, and grit. Mi nombre es Priscilla Andrade, and I come to this conversation as a writer, a mother, local business owner, resident of Eggleston Square, and archivist with the Social Justice Archive Network at the Elma Lewis Social Justice Center at Emerson College. Boston Art and Music Soul Fest, BAMS Fest, is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that breaks down racial and social barriers to arts, music, and culture across Greater Boston. BAMS Fest celebrates and supports artists and audiences, centering Black and Brown voices, perspectives, and artistry. The ARTDACITY series is a conversational style series that explores the intersections of the arts, civic engagement, and lived experiences between Black and Brown creative entrepreneurs and communities at large. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the land we occupy is the traditional territory of the Massachusetts people. We seek to pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. To that end, we welcome viewers to support, learn about, and engage with the efforts to stop Line 3 all across the country. Boston Art and Music Soul Fest creates inclusive events and programs that welcome everyone. Our staff, board, volunteers, and affiliates have the right to a safe and respectful experience. Discrimination or harassment will not be tolerated in any form, either in person or virtually. In today's episode, we'll discuss the Queendom of Elma Lewis and how her extraordinary vision, unwavering strength, and lifelong commitment to excellence in the arts lives on in the artists she raised and the foundation she laid for Boston's arts and culture ecosystem. In honor of her 100th birthday, we dedicate this episode as an ode to her passion, legacy, and impact on enhancing the vibrancy of Black Boston. Joining us today is Helen Kriedl.
Hi.
Hi, Helen. Helen was born and raised in Roxbury, except for 5 years in New York City. She has spent 8 decades working in community program development, in ballet, at Life Magazine, New England Conservatory of Music, the Boston Mayor's Office, and all the Massachusetts state prisons working for criminal justice, prison reform, and reentry. She was also a runway model, protege of Dorothea Tolles, and with designer Wesley Tan's Scarsy, to name a few. She ran the Mature Worker Program for the Urban League of Eastern Massachusetts. Her political and jazz education came directly from relationships with greats like Freddie Hubbard, Jimmy Spalding, James Baldwin, and Malcolm X. She now works as an archivist with the Social Justice Archive Network at the Elma Lewis Social Justice Center at Emerson College, and is an avid volunteer for the Senior Program Development at Whittier Street Health Center in Roxbury. Welcome, Helen.
How you doing?
Very good. Also joining us is Shaumba Yande Dibinga. Shaumba is the founding artistic director of the Origination Cultural Arts Center, a nonprofit that uses dance as a tool to empower young people one dancer at a time, and the founder of Shape Up with Shaumba Incorporated, an organization whose mission is to utilize dance, fitness, nutrition, spoken word, and writing to heal communities. She has extensive training, teaching, and performance experience in many genres of dance and theater, and has been writing poetry and plays for over 25 years. She is currently a trustee at the Boston Renaissance Charter Public School and the Summer Stars Foundation. She is also a member of the Barr Fellows class of 2011 and has received numerous awards for her work with Origination, including but not limited to the Catalyst Award, the Philanthropic Initiatives Boston Fellows Award, the Portraits of Courage Upstanders Award, the Berklee College of Music Urban Service Award, the Community Catalyst Award, the Next Steps Award, the Brother Thomas Fellowship, the NAACP Boston Image Award, the Roxbury Rocks Award, the Malcolm X Award, and the Melnia Cass Service Award. She continues to work with the City of Boston as well as Governor Baker and the state, various school systems, institutions, and organizations nationally and internationally to uplift arts and culture. She is also the author of the children's poetry book, Pride in My Stride, and the creator of Hot Body Fusion. Welcome, Shaumba.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to have this conversation with you all, such accomplished, incredible artists and community leaders. So I'd love to start there and ask you each, how did you get started in your careers? And maybe, Shaumba, we could start with you.
Sure. So I have a very big family. I am a Congolese American, so my parents are refugees of the Democratic Republic of Congo. And so in coming to the United States, they came with my oldest brother, Musao, my oldest brother, Saeed, and my oldest sister, Musao. And their big idea was to come here and create a better, life for their children. And there are a lot of us. And growing up, I watched my parents give back a lot. So they gave and gave and gave and never really got much in return. And I wondered why they did that, because I thought when you give something, you're supposed to get, right?
Mhm.
And so, my sisters took dance class. We lived in Cambridge. My parents were students at Harvard University. And so we lived on their campus, and my sisters were allowed to go take dance. We didn't have a lot of money, so I couldn't take classes. So I kind of cried every single Saturday morning until they broke and they found the money for me to go to class. When I started to take class, I was hooked. I was the only Black student, along with my sisters, in an all-white dance school in Watertown. It was the Susan Wright Reagan Dance Studio. And that's where our love of dance really, really, honed in outside of what we did at home. And so when we moved into Roxbury, we had a lot of challenges, in terms of being bullied, right? But the one thing that stuck with us was the arts. So I was still studying dance and still watching my parents give back. And at that time in Roxbury, I didn't really know much about the surrounding arts areas, the arts programs. So I wanted to create something that embedded African cultures and traditions, but also taught jazz and tap and ballet and modern and spoken word and all of that. And so that's how I ended up starting Origination Cultural Arts Center. I wanted to have a space where children can go and families didn't have to pay, an arm and leg for their child to participate in classes. And so I started off with 5 young people one summer in hopes that I would get 30. I cried every day. And by the end of the summer, I had my 30 young people. And Origination just flew. So I've been doing this work for 30 years with Origination, and we've been a nonprofit for 27 years now.
Wow. Congratulations. That's
Thank
really
you.
amazing. And really hearing that reminds me of the subject of our conversation today, Miss Lewis and her beginnings in Roxbury with the school. But I'd love to hear from Helen and a little bit about how your career got started.
Excuse me. I just realized, being amongst all of you, that I had a career. I looked at things as doing the work. I was raised in that kind of generation. Miss Lewis would always say things like, you must do the work. And so whatever we did, and however we invested ourselves, we looked at it as doing the work. I have to go back to, 1948, actually. I was 8 years old, and I had gone with my little girlfriend, my best friend, down to Blue Avenue to the Roxy Theater. And I happened to see a movie with Maura Shearer in it called The Red Shoes. And it was back in the day when little kids could walk the neighborhood without feeling afraid. I mean, we just could walk to and fro. And it was just at the end of World War II, where the whole world was fighting Russia for saving the lives of Jewish people. That is the way that the stories were told to us. So I went and saw this movie, The Red Shoes, and it blew me away. A fabulous dancer by the name of Maura Shearer. I didn't even know anything about ballet, how to spell it, how to pronounce it, or anything. But I remember running home to my mom and explaining to her how I had to learn how to dance like the lady in the red shoes. A month went by, and she came home and she said, I found you a ballet teacher. First time I heard the word ballet. And she took me to meet Miss Lewis. And we walked up from, I'll never forget it as long as I live, from if I get emotional, I think you're going to have to kind of bear with me because I didn't realize I was going to get emotional.
Okay.
I remember walking with my mom from 39 Quincy Street, down Gaston, over Gannett, up the hill to Warren. And our church, Charles Street Amy Church, was like there. That's almost literally next door. We walked into this little house, number 9 Warmbeck Street. I'll never forget it. It rang the bell, and a little bell rang over the door, and my mom and I walked in, and this little young 16-year-old met us at the door with her hair in a bun, and she had on a leotard and tights and the whole 9 yards. And she brought us in and sat us in this little room and said, Miss Lewis will be with you in a moment. Well, dash, flash, camera, whatever. And next thing you know, here comes Miss Lewis walking in with her head up and her arms out. Good afternoon, Helen. Good afternoon, Marge. And that's how she acted. Well, this is this little 8-year-old kid. And I'm saying, my God, what did I get into? You have to imagine, I'm coming from seeing Maurice Shearer, a quarter ballet, and I'm seeing a 4'11" kind of roly-poly woman in tights, a black leotard, pink tights, and I'm saying, what the heck is going on? However, I would say in less than 12 minutes, she transformed the whole room. By the time she finished talking and walking in front with her put a bra and the way she spoke, I was totally mesmerized. Totally mesmerized. I had never, ever, in my little 8 years being on the planet, sat before such a moving, emotional target of eloquence and grace. I didn't even know those words, but I knew I was seeing and hearing something magnificent. Okay. And then it went on from there. I have to take kind of like a deep breath.
Yes, please do.
And the reason why I'm taking the deep breath is because when I talk about Miss Lewis and my journey with her, I literally go back in time to the moment and the presence and the smell of the room and the whole 9 yards, and I get filled up all over again. And what happens is there's a certain fear that I had of not making a mistake, doing everything the way she wanted to have it done, because she was so powerful in that kind of direction and oratory that you wanted to make sure you pleased her.
Thank you for that. It's such an amazing truth about memories and storytelling that we really teleport, we really transport to those moments in time. So thank you for taking us there. And it's such an amazing first story, first entrance. And so I'll ask Shaumba, what was your first introduction to Miss Lewis, the first time connected to her, her work, her legacy, her name?
What's interesting is 2 of my mentors, Jackie Curry and Leslie Butler, were my introduction to Miss Lewis. So when I was in high school, I worked with Jackie Curry and Leslie Butler, and they were my black ballerinas. They were it for me, watching them move, watching them chasse, watching them teach, watching them lead just gave me so much courage and empowerment and really made me love dance. And so I ended up meeting Miss Lewis through Black Nativity. So I didn't meet her when I was younger. I met her years and years later. And in having a conversation with Leslie Butler, she was working with Miss Lewis when she was 6 years old. And so in listening to the stories that Miss Butler was telling me about what Miss Lewis did for her and for everyone that encountered her made me realize the depths of how much I embrace and I think I can say exude Miss Lewis, because although I wasn't one of her students in her studio, I'm a product of Jackie Curry and Leslie Butler, and they are products of Miss Lewis. And so when I hear people say, you know, you're like the Elma Lewis of Boston, you know, you're the Albanelli of Boston, I think about the legends. You know, with my young people, I like to make sure they understand who came before us, who paved the way for us to be able to do what we're doing. There's no way I'd be able to do anything that I'm doing now if it weren't for Elma Lewis. She was it. The studios that are here in Boston, a lot of the studios that are being ran, they came through Elma Lewis. You know, and it's important for people to understand. So right now I'm the coordinator for the Elma Lewis Playhouse in the Park at Franklin Park. And so for years I've been organizing free performances and workshops for young people to come during the summertime, where they come to Franklin Park over at the Elma Lewis Playhouse and they watch performances for a straight hour, or they participate in dance classes. And then in the evening they switch it. And they have free blues performances, jazz bands performing, pop, the whole 9 yards, in celebration and in memory of Miss Lewis. You know, and the stories that I hear about how she taught help me know that I'm doing the right thing. Because I hear I know you didn't go to Miss Lewis's school, but you remind me of her. I'm very invested in my students, not just in the studio. I'm invested in what happens at home. I'm invested in what happens in school. I can have a really great time, but when it's time to get down to business, we get down to business. And I need my students to be able to leave my studio and go to another studio and understand the terminology and be able to demonstrate the terminology. And in listening to the stories about Miss Lewis, she didn't play.
No.
Play around, you know, and I loved hearing those sorts of things. But one other thing I would like to add is, you know, talking to Miss Butler, she said that when Miss Butler went to go dance in Russia and all these other spaces, she couldn't understand how Miss Lewis knew the ballet terminology, when at that time Black students, Black young people, Black people weren't really allowed to be in those spaces. And so she also mentioned that, and hopefully Helen, you can, you know, correct me or speak on it when there's another thing she mentioned, that Miss Lewis taught her and her students the ballet Giselle, as well as Swan Lake. And so Miss Butler she couldn't understand how Miss Lewis learned those ballets. And so she said, I just have to ask. So she asked her, how do you know all of the choreography, considering you weren't in Swan Lake? She said, I've watched them 16 times. And by that time, I could tell you every single thing about that Swan Lake and about Giselle. And so these young Black students were learning Swan Lake here in Roxbury. They were learning Giselle here in Roxbury and being able to present it. And so I was introduced to Miss Lewis through these incredible people. And I've now introduced Miss Lewis to my students because I think she needs to be remembered. It's important for people to understand where we came from. So that's my introduction. Black Nativity and my mentors.
Yes. And that standard, that high standard of excellence and quality work and clarity of doing things properly and the right way. And it really resonated with me, what you were saying about this sort of unexpected body. Both of you sort of mentioned that, carrying ballet, when the image of ballet, particularly in Boston, particularly at that time, was very distinct and singular, right? So thin, white, that's it, right? Everybody else is not welcome to engage. And so for Miss Lewis to bring this art form to Roxbury, to young Black children, is so radical and so revolutionary, but she did it in such a way that felt natural, it seems, that she didn't even have to guess it. It wasn't a question of, have to climb this, certainly there were obstacles, but it was the obvious thing to do. And what Shaumba said resonated with me, Helen, that you had mentioned, that Miss Lewis would go to New York, watch the shows, watch them again and again, and then bring them to the students in Boston. So I'm wondering how that resonates for you.
Genius.
I have to go back to class. Jackie Curry and I were in the same class.
Wow.
We studied every Tuesday and every Saturday. Jackie's mother, Doris, and my mom and Miss Lewis and a whole bunch of moms would always be there on Saturdays. And we were cut from a cloth that we thought everything that was happening to us in ballet class was natural for us to be happening in ballet class. Yes. Because we didn't know the difference. We didn't know that we were not supposed to, in quotes, know about the ballet we were about to learn. Mm-hmm. And so as little kids, you got to remember now, if you can really put your head to it, we're 8. When we started with Miss Lewis at 8 and left her when we were 25. Okay, so here comes this brilliant woman who tells us she's going to teach us the Cecchetti system of ballet. Okay, and that's how we learned how to walk pas marché, to do an arabesque, to do a développé, to do a pirouette, or to do an ensemble. And because we were taught at 8, our bodies grew into it. And now at 80, we still have the same kind of movement because we know no other way. Mm-hmm. So what happened is she would take us step by step, toe by toe, and we started out in a little apartment on the first floor of Warmbeck Street. No mirrors, folding chairs with the seat pod pushed against the wall. In the back was our bar. And we would do our bar work, and then we'd do center floor, and then we'd sit on the floor, and then we would do the grand dame. And that would be the leaps and the dances. The piano was our bar, the high structured piano. Whatever worked was what we did. And I remember at 10, we did Les Sophites. We didn't do the whole ballet because we'd only been with her for 24 months. So we were Les Sophites, and we did the Broadway play of Guys and Dolls. Back, I'm serious. Marlon Brando was the star. It was amazing. And we did, I remember, Take Back Your Mink. And my mother, Miss Lewis, made me the star of that Broadway show. We presented out of Jordan Hall at the New England Conservatory. That was our very first dance recitals were out at Jordan Hall at the New England Conservatory. And so that's how, wow, I'm just thinking, that's how I became introduced to the world of ballet. Now, 2 years later, this is 1950. 1950 was the first playhouse in the park.
What?
Yes. 1950. I was 15 or 16. I can't remember that. I'll tell you who it was. So Miss Lewis decided we were going to do Playhouse in the Park. And how that was going to work was we were going to have a stage. She had gone to Central Park and saw theater arts in New York. So she saw theater in the park in New York, the Shakespeare Theater. Okay. So she used to go, honest to God, Chumba, she would go at least twice a month and stay at the Summer Ritz Hotel and critique all the Broadway shows and then come back to class and teach us. And that's how that thing went.
Oh my gosh.
So the first playhouse was done up in the rocks, like in front of the Shattuck Hospital, that hill up there. That was the first playhouse up on that hill. And the audience was in that field down below.
Oh, my goodness.
Pepper costumes at that time at the, give me a minute, on American Legion Highway.
The Hecht House? Is it the Hecht House, right?
The Hecht House. She worked with Hadassah, and they let her keep all her costumes up on the second floor. Now, wait till you hear this one. Susan Batson and I walked from Franklin Park. We're like, I think I was in the 10th or 11th grade, okay, at Roxbury Memorial High School, the same high school Miss Lewis graduated from. We would walk from that makeshift stage up in those rocks, across Franklin Park, over American Legion Highway to the Hecht House, which was Lena Park, second floor, grab a bundle of costumes and walk back so that we could have the costumes behind theater.
You're kidding.
I am not kidding. We made 12 trips. At the end of the 12th, we were so tired, we were crying. We were hysterical. We were so tired. We swore we were going to hang her from the nearest tree. At that time, she was very close with Virginia Williams of the Boston Ballet, and Al Petrocelli was the light person. Those are the people that we did the first playhouses in the park, and the students were the performers. And all look at me, I get all excited, I can't help it. And the families would all come and be the audience, and we would yell and scream, and we would have the lights go on, and the lights, it was amazing.
Amazing.
I need a conversation with you and Jackie.
Really.
Like that?
I remember Jackie,
Wow.
Renee Rose, Janet Haynes, you have to give this lady a minute here. Kenny Scott, Freddie Benjamin.
My goodness.
A whole bunch of us. And we went to New York and we danced and we modeled and we did commercials. We did a whole bunch of stuff because of the way that we were taught.
Yes.
We were taught in such a way that let me just see if I can. Let me read something to you real quick.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, is that okay?
Yeah.
All right, let me just real quick.
Wow.
Here is something I said to myself. Do I have the, wait, pun on words, right? Do I have the audacity, really, to talk to Miss Lewis?
Right.
Hell no. Yep. Absolutely not. So I said, let me find some stuff that she actually said. Because, once you hear her speak, she speaks that way all the time. She has a command that is like no other. So if I were to say something that she said then, you will recall, if you've been in her presence, similar things she said when she was with you, because she always had that same kind of persona. So I remember her saying, she said, art is not separate from life. Art is not something to be added to the people. It is the guts of the people. So when we studied with her and the work that we did, we felt it in our guts because it was gut-wrenching work. Okay. And it was something that became your blood, your skin, and your veins. You never forgot it. You never forget it. One more thing, and I love this part about her. This is how extraordinary to me she was. Even little, as a little kid, we knew not to take any foolishness. She said, there is no reason for me to believe that anybody else is going to present me as their main topic of interest. Therefore, I'll sovereign myself. She just knew. She had this innate knowing that no one could really, 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 really represent her.
Right.
Or really, really, really talk about who and how she really is, because you would have to be a part of those very moments to get it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
then when you try to talk about it, there's really no words. You know what I'm saying? How you grapple, because there's no words. So behind that, I'll take a break. I feel like I just did 12 developers.
Listen, I'm loving this.
You did.
But
that is the energy, right? I mean, that is the energy that it's in hearing these narratives, right? I didn't have the pleasure of meeting Miss Lewis, but I've had the pleasure of hearing those closest to her and their stories and memories about her, reading about her, listening to interviews with her, hearing from her own voice, and having that resonant message of excellence and poise and power, and particularly this focus on young people. And Shamba, you're working directly with young people. That's the mission of your organization. And Helen listened to you speak about that time, right? That the function of arts and creativity and expression for young people, carrying on that legacy is so important, so significant. You mentioned it too, Shamba, about remembering those who came before us. So I wonder, what do you carry forward in that, in particular, about working with young people, and why are the arts so significant, and particularly Miss Lewis's legacy, as you mentioned, carrying that on to the next generation of young Bostonian Black artists?
Wow.
Sorry.
That's okay. In listening to Helen, when you were talking about being in the studio and using folding chairs for the bar, when I first started Origination, I was at the Roland Hayes School of Music using their space. I was at the First Church of Roxbury using their space. And I utilized, and we've been from space to space until we got our own spot. But we used the wall. We used folding chairs. We used whatever they had in that room. We used music stands. So there were a few music stands around. So when you're telling that story, it just reminds me of what we did when we first started Origination. You do what needs to be done in order to make sure our children, our young people get the best of the best, and they understand that everything and anything is possible. And so when I'm working with young people, like this past summer, they've gone through this whole pandemic and trying to, get back into studio spaces and schools and playing with their friends. So in our summer program, one of our classes is called Legends. And during that class, they learn about legends, Black choreographers, Black dancers, Black directors. And these children are ages 6 through 14. And they research the artist. They go home, they print the information, they come home and they come back to the studio and they make these boards. And on the boards are pictures of the individual, when they were born, what they did, who they knew, all of this wonderful information. And then they learn how to present it to each other. And so we take pride in making sure they understand that none of this would be possible without the people that were here before me. There's no way I could do this work if Elma Lewis didn't exist. There's no way. And I can safely and honestly and authentically say that with every ounce of my being. There's no way I could do this. She was small in stature, but such a powerful human being, such an inspiring human being. Even just when you mentioned her interviews, even in listening to her voice.
Yes.
Listening to her voice and watching Black nativity, being able to watch someone produce a body of work like that is incredible in itself. And that's something that would go from year to year to year to year to year, and generations of families would participate in Black nativity. Yeah. So when I think about Elma Lewis and her legacy, I just know that, it's like Ubuntu. I am because we are. There's no way I could be who I am if it weren't for Elma Lewis. She paved the way for so many people to do what they're doing now, whether it's opening a studio or being an attorney or being a math teacher. She's paved the way for so many of us. And I will forever be grateful for that and forever be in debt to her because of what she did and who she is and what she stood for. And I love the fact that, you know, in my classes, you have to be dressed for class. You have to be in your leotard. You have to be in your, that's the uniform.
Yes.
You know, that you don't have, Mr. Binga, I don't have, okay, well, you need to go find something to put on that's part of uniform or you can't participate. You know, the standards. And I know that Helen can talk about that, you know. So I'm all about her. I am. She's just an incredible inspiration.
Right.
Yes, a true honor and truly affirming and particularly hearing that awareness about where we come from and who we are and what we're capable of. Always hearing her centering her parents as inspiration, her brothers as inspiration, that there was this sense of self that was unshakable. And so anything was possible. Anything was worth the time to invest, to be excellent, to achieve that thing. Certainly the arts were the focus as an artist, as a dancer, as a creative. But it is amazing that her legacy has all of these other fields in it. I mean, yes, there's the ballet school, there's the Elma Lewis School of Fine Arts, which then expanded to music and all these other elements. There's the concerts in the park, Uptown in the Park, the concert series at White Stadium. There's Playhouse in the Park, which thank you, Shamba, for carrying that forward. We got to enjoy that this year. It's always a pleasure. And then the work in Massachusetts State Corrections, this commitment to bringing the arts to everyone. So if the artists can't come to us, we're going to bring the art to them and give them skills and give them a connection to not just the arts, but to themselves. And to what you were saying, Helen, her quote of arts being the guts of the people. There's nothing to, certainly there are things to learn and styles and all of that, but that the essence or innate capacity to create and express is already deep inside there. People just need the opportunity to tap in.
She gave us a chance. I'm still going back to, it's hard for me, Shamba, Priscilla, to leave a certain period of time based on the way that we're talking as sisters about Miss Lewis. And that's because so much happened as a student and her as our teacher during that time.
No doubt.
So from the ages of 8 to 12, she would take a group of us, at least 8 or 9 to 10 of us. And I'm at the Elma Lewis Center at Emerson right now, and I'm looking out the window. You could throw a stone to the Opera House, where she took us on 3 occasions to see the Royal Ballet, I'm telling you, to see Sadler's Wells Ballet. I can even show you the row that we sat in on the first floor. She would sit us, we had the 12 little seats in her, and we were sitting there. We had no idea that we were the only Black kids in the room. We had no idea, honestly. We were so waiting to see the ballet open. And we would be sitting there talking amongst each other. Did you see her develop? Hey, did you see the arabesque? Oh my God, he lifted her to, and we turned around and the white people were looking like at us, like we were from Mars. For us, it was normal. It was natural. We were supposed to know. Why are you looking at us? And so we are not supposed to know this art. That is the kind of stick-to-itiveness and power that we got drilled into. So by the time we're 14 and 15, we know we can handle it. We know there's no mission too great that we can't accomplish because we learned how to do that when we were 8 and 9 years old.
That's right.
Get it? So I understand where you're coming from. I understand the work that you do with them young kids. And one day, one of them are going to be an 80-year-old woman talking about being 8, like you.
That's right. That's right.
So get excited.
Oh my goodness.
It's exciting. It's really exciting. It's amazing legacy to, bring to life, and our objective is to make it a living legacy. And it's so amazing to hear the work that you all are doing and that we're trying to do at the Social Justice Center here at Emerson, to keep that legacy alive and recognize that it's not really gone. Because like you said, Shamba, there's no way that there are so many spaces. They exist because of Miss Lewis, because of the work she did, because of the community of people mobilizing around her as well. So I wonder, when we think about that, bringing that legacy forward to today, how do you think we can or should continue her work in today's cultural and social environment, particularly some of the things that you were talking about, Shamba? Students are in a digital world. They're, particularly through the pandemic, experiencing a lot of isolation and solitude, and not able to come together in the ways that we would traditionally do so. So wondering how you see that happening, how you see it playing out, or what are the things that we try to do to keep that legacy alive?
Well, we do with Origination for over 15 years. We produce a show called Our Story. It's a celebration of the African and African American experience through the performing arts. And within that production, and it's usually live, in that production, we touch base on all these different incredible artists. And so we're now moving that to a digital platform. And Miss Lewis is included in that production. And so this digital Our Story, our goal is to get it in all of the schools in the different school districts in Boston and outside of Massachusetts, and having her just continue to live on. Sorry, like I'm listening to Helen's in my head. So just saying, she would participate, she would be a part of that digital platform where no matter what child, no matter what age group, they would be able to know about her. They'd be able to see, read, hear her voice, and it will just continue to go on forever. And in listening to this conversation, I really think, and I don't know if it's in the works, there needs to be a documentary. You have all of these incredible people that were in her space, that slept Elma Lewis, that breathes Elma Lewis. You look at Helen, I'm like, there needs to be some sort of documentary where we can go to the theater, pay our ticket and sit with our students and watch on a big screen the story of Elma Lewis and all of the incredible people that she touched. So I think that's something that needs to continue outside of her being in our libraries, and it needs to happen. It needs to happen. So those are some of the things that we're working on. And in terms of that documentary, I would love to figure out how to make something like that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it seems like an appropriate time to name that the Elma Lewis Center and Social Justice Center at Emerson College. Part of this work that we're doing here at the center is the Elma Lewis Living Stories Project. And so Helen and I have been connected to that as archivists in that work, interviewing and actually really holding story circles with the folks who knew her best, to build out a digital archive that would be accessible to the public. So that will launch in a little less than a year's time. But then as part of the Living Stories Project, we'll have an opportunity to celebrate Miss Lewis each month with a kitchen table series where we'll be talking to different people based on these different connections, because there's just so much. I mean, we try to fit things into one conversation or one session or one movie or whatever it might be. But it's a blooming legacy that has so many elements and so many different, spaces of communication or creation. And so we want to be able to hold those spaces so folks can access them, part of them, participate in them. It's also an ongoing process. So folks who want to share their stories or their memories can reach out to the Social Justice Center at Emerson College, Elma Lewis Center. And as part of the Living Stories Project, we host these story circles, and we'd love anybody watching, anybody tuning in, you can reach out to us, and we'd love to host a story circle with you, get those memories, because it is important not just to identify what has happened, but to recognize how that is all still happening, that is all still existing in our communities, that these folks who not only learned from Miss Lewis, but supported her, worked alongside her, created with her, are still members of our community, and are proliferating that message in various ways, through the arts, of course, but in other spaces as well. So from September 15th, Miss Lewis's 100th birthday of 2021, all the way to September of 2022. We'll be hosting this month-to-month series. So that's an opportunity to sort of get started there. And it's exciting to see what blooms next, what other potential projects or sort of creative endeavors there are to keep the legacy alive, but keep the work alive too. That we're remembering, but we're also, taking diligent notes about how to keep it going and to modify it and bring it to the present tense so that young people are still getting the value of that learning and of that expression.
Well, I would like to bloom some more.
Please do.
Yes.
No, but here's what I would like to do, Shamba. I really would like to get together with you. I really would, because I think that the conversation that you and I would have would be mind-blowing to both of us. And I could share with you some of her actual practices. I mean, that's sharing too, when you can kind of lay out her teaching method.
Yes.
Okay, which is not being passed on. That I would really, boy, I'm just getting excited thinking about it.
You and me both.
I would love to sit down with you and kind of go through it.
Yes.
How she taught it, because I remember like it was yesterday.
Wow.
Okay. Even some of the music she played while we did bar in center floor. Get us used to it. Certain things. How she introduced us to certain people. How we did every form of it. Like we learned lighting. Okay.
Yes.
Learned costume. In terms of what to wear when. Okay. We learned how to sit. We learned how to walk. We learned how to talk. We learned when to shut up.
Yes.
It's a whole kind of thing. And I think that if you and I got together and you picked my brain and so forth and so on, I don't care what questions you would ask, I would be able to lay some stuff out.
We have to do it.
Yeah, I think we always
already it's in motion.
Because I think that's a kind of legacy that if we could leave her teaching modality, you can talk about it all day. But if we could leave that teaching modality, and Jackie Curry could be a part of it too, because she got her legs flapped just like I did, because you know where I'm going. So I'm just saying that's something that I think we need to do, and we could really do that right through the Elma Lewis Center.
Oh, I absolutely want to do it. I would be honored, 100%.
I'm excited.
Oh, me too. I am. This is fantastic.
No, it is. I love you.
I love you too. This is, oh my gosh.
I know. This is great, isn't it?
It is.
This is exactly that.
And have the audacity to I just think it's amazing.
Wow.
I think this is exactly the living legacy that honors the work, right, of people coming together. And I think, one of the things that is so affirming in all of this process of learning these stories and listening to the people who knew her, all these folks are giants, right? They're icons. Miss Lewis, James Baldwin, Paul Robeson. I mean, all these people are icons. But in these conversations, I recognize that they are people. And they were people with drive and commitment and passion and intellect and a creative pursuit that really drove everything, right? A desire to come together. So this is exactly what's happening, this desire to maybe we should call and we should do a thing and maybe figure it out. That to me is the conversation that's happening at Waubeck and at Homestead and in White Stadium and on Elm Hill Avenue. Those conversations are moments that spark, a potential idea, and then we're set off with the horse, everything's racing out and we are almost so excited that we can't contain it. And it becomes these larger than life experiences, not just for ourselves, but for each other. And again, for the young people coming up through the city, that they have an example, they have a model for how to channel all of that and be able to really experience not only a sense of expression, but self-love and value of self to be able to say, yeah, I did that, and I did it with my community and in my community.
Right.
Really, really powerful. I want to thank you both so much for sharing your time, your insights, your experiences. I know that you could go forever. I'm sure there's endless stories. But a question is, what we could look forward to in the future, but it looks like we've got some plans brewing.
Absolutely.
Yes. We thank you all who are tuned in. We thank you so much for joining us. We wish Miss Lewis a happy 100th birthday.
Happy birthday, Miss Lewis.
Happy birthday, Miss Lewis.
We hope that we are aptly honoring her legacy. We know the standard is high, but we will keep trying.
That's right.
We want to extend a special thanks to our sponsors, King Boston and Amazon. And a special thanks to Tam Marco and the team at the Elma Lewis Center at Emerson College. So please follow at Elma Lewis Center. That's where you'll find some of that information about the month-to-month kitchen table series and some of the other elements of the archive that we're pulling together. And is there any projects that you all want to plug, share with us, things that you're working on that you want the public to know?
I actually do. Yes. Thank you. So we have our annual benefit happening on October 9th. It's virtual. It's called Twist and Shout. And if you go to our website, we have all the information on there, but it's our young people presenting contemporary work, African work, spoken word, and we're also giving awards to certain people in our community and outside of our community for the work they do, whether it's within the arts or our community or health and wellness. And so I'm excited about that. But our website is www.originationinc.org, and it has all of the information for Twist and Shout. And I would love for people to tune in and see what our young people are doing. They're magical, and they're telling stories about what's happening in the world through our art. So you would really, really love it.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll be sure to tune in and be involved and support, because that's what young people need. They need that space. They need the opportunity, right?
Yes.
Just a chance to be able to shine, because they are brilliant. They're so amazing.
They are.
Incredibly powerful, super smart, funny, and brilliant. So excited. Thank you so much for sharing. Helen, anything you want to share with the people?
Oh, I am an archivist for the Social Justice Archive Network at the Elma Lewis Center. I just think that passing stuff on in a different form, and because I would just like to share some of the teaching methods and some of the principles and so forth and so on, because I don't think it's anywhere written down, or I really don't think it is. Like her process, processes she used, the discipline and exercising that part, all that kind of stuff I got. Because I used to go to her house every day and work on projects with her. I was 8, 9, and 10 years old doing this stuff. I had no idea how religious it had become until this moment. I'm with you and Priscilla, Shanbeg, right now, this moment.
Yes.
You brought it all out. So you can't take any moment or time for granted. This has been a remarkable experience for me. And I thank ARTDACITY across the board for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing and for sharing your time. And we want to give a special birthday shout out to Helen. Helen, happy birthday to you too.
Happy birthday.
Celebration. And we just want to encourage everyone to follow along as the ARTDACITY series continues. Stay tuned to the YouTube channel or follow along on bamfest.org. The next episode is October 28th. 2021. And you can keep up with other upcoming events with the monthly newsletter or follow at BAMSFest on social media. Until next time, everyone. Peace. Thank you so much.
Peace.
Awesome. Peace.
Art. 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 Art.